My name is Madeline Archer. I'm 33 years old. And I used to think the worst thing that could happen from being kind was you'd get taken for granted. I didn't understand there was a category beyond that. A place where kindness becomes evidence, where your home becomes a courtroom, where someone can look you in the eye, inside the walls you pay for, the walls you inherited, the walls that have held your grief and your healing, and threaten to turn you into a villain with a single phone call. I'm telling you this now because people love to say, just help, just be a good person. I was, and it almost cost me everything. It started 3 months earlier at Jenna's birthday party, one of those cozy, slightly chaotic gatherings where the music is too loud, the cake is too sweet, and everyone pretends they're not checking their phones every 5 minutes. I didn't go because I was in a social mood. I went because Jenna had been my friend since college, and because my therapist had been gently nudging me to stop spending my weekends alone in the condo I'd inherited from my grandfather. The condo was paid off. No mortgage, no landlord, no roommate drama. It was security in concrete form. 3 bedrooms that felt like proof I'd survived something. 1 bedroom was mine, 1 was my home office, and the 3rd was a guest room that mostly collected quiet. That night, I met Ethan Caldwell. He was charming in a way that didn't feel rehearsed at first. Warm smile, quick jokes, the kind of guy who made everyone feel like they were in on something with him. He asked questions that sounded like he actually cared about the answers. "What do you do?" he asked, leaning against the kitchen counter like he belonged there. "I'm a compliance analyst," I said. "Not exciting. Lots of spreadsheets, lots of rules." Ethan grinned. "Rules are underrated. People always hate them until they need them." Something about that landed, because I'd spent years being the responsible one, the cautious one, the woman who didn't make impulsive decisions. Being understood felt like a soft place to sit. We talked for most of the night. Horror movies, favorite diners, Jenna's terrible taste in men. The conversation slid so easily, I didn't notice the way he kept weaving himself into my space, standing just a little closer, laughing just a little louder at my jokes, touching my elbow like it was natural. When he asked for my number, I gave it. When he texted me the next day, "Had fun last night. Want to grab coffee?" I said yes. We started dating within a week. Fast, I know. But loneliness makes speed feel like destiny. And Ethan had this way of being attentive without being intense. He'd remember the little things, how I took my coffee, which songs I skipped in the car, the fact that I hated surprise plans. He'd send me a meme at 2 p.m. and a voice note at 9 p.m. that started with, "Okay, I need to tell you something weird that happened today." It felt intimate, familiar, like a relationship that had been quietly forming in the background and finally stepped into the light. 3 weeks in, we were sitting on my couch eating takeout, Thai food balanced on the coffee table, when Ethan went quiet in that careful way people get when they're about to ask for something. I noticed his leg bouncing, his chopsticks hovering over the container like he'd forgotten how to use them. "What's going on?" I asked. He hesitated, then sighed like he was surrendering. "My roommate situation is falling apart." "Like a fight?" I asked. "No." He gave a humorless laugh. "Like, my lease ends soon. My roommate's moving in with his girlfriend and I can't afford a place on my own right now." He tried to say it casually, but the words came out with edges, panic tucked behind them. "That's stressful," I said carefully. "Yeah." He looked down. "I've been looking, but everything's so expensive, and I don't really have a plan B unless I move back with my parents." "How far are they?" I asked. 2 hours. He shrugged like it didn't matter, but his jaw tightened. "And it's complicated." The way he said complicated made me picture arguments, judgment, a childhood bedroom that didn't feel like home anymore. And then he said something that, in hindsight, was the first little hook. "I'm just tired, Maddie," he murmured. "I feel like I can't catch up." I should have paused. I should have suggested resources, helped him apartment hunt, kept it at a safe distance. But there is a particular weakness in me that looks like empathy. And the condo had space. Too much space. A room that was literally called guest room. So I said, "You can stay here for a bit, if you need to." Ethan blinked at me. "Wait, seriously?" "Temporarily," I added quickly, "in the guest room, while you find something. I'm not saying we move in together." I remember being proud of myself for setting that boundary so clearly. Ethan's face softened. He reached for my hand like I'd handed him a lifeline. "Thank you," he said. "I swear, just a month, maybe 2, tops." And I believed him because he sounded grateful, because he sounded relieved, because he kissed my knuckles like I was some kind of miracle. That was my first mistake. He moved in with 2 suitcases and a cheerful attitude. The first week was fine, almost sweet. He offered to cook dinner one night. He made coffee in the mornings and asked me how my meetings went. He stayed mostly in the guest room, like he respected the line we'd drawn. I told myself, see, this is what healthy looks like, helping someone without losing yourself. Then, somewhere around week 2, the air in my condo started to feel different. It wasn't one big thing. It was a series of small shifts that were easy to ignore if you didn't want to seem dramatic. His toothbrush appeared in my bathroom. Not the guest bathroom, mine. His shampoo lined up on the counter like it had always been there. His hoodie draped over the back of my dining chair. His socks in my laundry hamper. And the kitchen. I came home from work one evening and opened a cabinet to grab a plate and froze. Everything had been rearranged. Cups moved, spices relocated, my neatly stacked containers shoved to the back like clutter. Ethan walked in behind me, wiping his hands on a towel. "Oh," he said lightly, like it was nothing. "I reorganized. It just made more sense this way." I stared at the cabinet, at the quiet assumption. "You didn't ask," I said. He smiled, like I was being cute. "Babe, relax. It's not a big deal. We're basically living together anyway." That sentence, "we're basically living together anyway," hit me in the chest. Because no, we weren't. He was a guest, temporary, a month or 2. I turned to face him, keeping my voice calm, even though something sharp was starting to bloom under my ribs. "Ethan," I said, "I need you to remember this is temporary, and I need my space respected." For a second, his expression flickered, something like annoyance, quickly smoothed over. "Of course," he said softer. "I'm sorry, you're right." He kissed my forehead like an apology could be wrapped up in affection. "I'll be more mindful," he promised. And for about 3 days, he was. Then it all crept back. Like ivy, quiet, persistent, claiming what it touched. And the scariest part? I didn't realize yet that he wasn't just getting comfortable. He was getting established. He was learning my routines, my weak spots, the places I hesitated, the places I gave. And the guest room was no longer a guest room. It was a foothold. The thing about losing control of your own home is that it doesn't happen like a break-in. No shattered window, no alarms. It happens through little decisions you don't argue about because you're tired, because you don't want to be that person, because you keep telling yourself the same lie I told myself every day. He's just going through a rough patch. By week 4, Ethan had a key. Not because he demanded one, not because I offered it in some big romantic moment. It was smaller than that. An afternoon where I was rushing out the door for work, laptop bag slipping off my shoulder, and Ethan said, "Hey, can I get a copy? Just in case. Like if you ever lock yourself out." It sounded practical, responsible, so I handed him the spare. And the second his fingers closed around it, I felt this tiny pinch in my stomach, like something inside me whispered, "Don't." But I ignored it, because ignoring discomfort is what kind women are trained to do. At first, he played the part perfectly. He'd mention apartment listings over dinner. He'd scroll on his phone and sigh dramatically. He'd say things like, "The market is insane right now," as if he was fighting a war I couldn't see. Then the mentions stopped. Not abruptly, slowly, like someone turning down the volume on a radio until the silence feels normal. I started asking more directly. "Any viewings this week?" I'd say. Ethan would wave his hand like he was swatting away a fly. That one turned out to be a scam. "Okay, what about that building near downtown?" "The landlord was creepy." "What about the studio you showed me?" "Too expensive, I need more time to save." Save. That word would have meant something if he was actually earning anything. Because around week 6, Ethan quit his job. It happened on a Tuesday, like it was nothing. I walked into the condo after work and found him on the couch, feet up, controller in hand. A video game paused on the screen. He looked relaxed. Not stressed, not defeated. Relaxed. "Hey," he said cheerfully. "How was your day?" I stared at him, scanning the room like I'd missed something. "Why aren't you at work?" He sighed like I was asking the wrong question. "I quit." I blinked. "You what?" He set the controller down, rubbing his eyes like he'd been through something heroic. "My manager is toxic, like, genuinely. I couldn't take it anymore." "Ethan," I said slowly, "you said you needed time to save. You said you were trying to find a place." "I am," he snapped, then softened immediately, leaning forward like he'd caught himself. I needed a mental health break." Mental health is real. Burnout is real. I've lived it. So I swallowed the first wave of panic. I told myself, okay, a week, 2, he'll regroup, he'll look again, he'll get something. I even made him dinner that night. I even asked gently, "What's your plan?" He kissed my cheek and said, "I'm figuring it out." The words sounded harmless, But as the days passed, I realized figuring it out looked a lot like doing nothing. Sleeping late, gaming, scrolling, ordering food, watching shows, saying he was too stressed to talk about logistics. And then the financial lines started to blur in a way that made my skin crawl. The first time he used my card, it was an accident. At least that's what he said. I was in the shower when I heard the front door open and close. When I stepped out, towel around my hair, I saw Ethan in the kitchen with a delivery bag. "Did you order something?" I asked. He grinned. "Yeah, you're gonna love it." I looked at the receipt stapled to the bag. My name, my card, my last 4 digits. My throat tightened. "Ethan, did you use my credit card?" He didn't even flinch. "Oh, yeah, yours was already saved on the app from last time you ordered. I figured it was fine. I'll pay you back." Last time. I didn't even remember saving it. But that's how it works, isn't it? Little conveniences that become open doors. "How much was it?" I asked. He shrugged. "Like 50-ish, don't freak out." 50-ish. It wasn't the number. It was the casualness. I stared at him, and he laughed like I was being dramatic. "Babe," he said, "it's just dinner." That night, I told myself it was a one-off. The next week, it happened again. This time, he didn't even announce it. I got the notification while I was at work. Delivery purchase. $47.62. My chest tightened so fast I had to put my phone face down on my desk like it was hot. I texted him, "Did you just order food on my card again?" He replied a full 10 minutes later. "Yeah, I was hungry. We're a team, right?" We're a team. A phrase that can be romantic when both people are contributing. When I came home that evening, Ethan was sprawled on the couch again, chewing leisurely, like he'd had a productive day. I stood in the doorway, still in my work clothes, the kind of clothes that always reminded me I'd earned my stability the hard way. "Ethan," I said, voice low, "we need to talk." He looked up, already guarded. "About what?" "You using my card," I said, "and the fact that you haven't been looking for work." He rolled his eyes. Actually rolled them. "I have been," he said. "It's just nothing good is out there." "You quit," I reminded him. "I didn't agree to support you." His posture changed. The air changed. He sat up slowly, like I'd insulted him. "Wow," he said. "So that's what this is?" "What?" He threw his hands out. "I didn't realize you were going to nickel and dime me." The phrase hit like a slap. I tried to keep my voice steady, even though my pulse was loud in my ears. "I'm not nickel and diming you," I said. "You're living here for free. You're not paying utilities. You're not buying groceries. You're not working. And you're ordering food on my credit card without asking." Ethan stared at me like I'd just revealed something disgusting about myself. "Unbelievable," he murmured. "It's not about money," I said quickly, because I could feel the guilt trying to crawl into my throat. "It's about respect. It's about effort. I offered you the guest room temporarily, Ethan. Temporarily." He stood up, stepping closer. His voice dropped into something sharper. "I'm going through a rough time, Maddie." "I know," I said, "and I've been trying to support you. But support isn't the same thing as carrying you." His face hardened. "So you think I'm a burden?" I exhaled, frustration rising. "I think you're acting like one." The silence after that was thick. Then he scoffed, turned away, and grabbed the empty delivery bag like it offended him. "Wow," he said again, shaking his head. "I didn't realize you were this kind of person." "This kind of person?" I repeated. "A person with boundaries?" He didn't answer. He stormed into the guest room, his room now, in his mind, and slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. And then he didn't speak to me for 2 days. 2 days of cold shoulders, dramatic sighs, and pointed silence. 2 days of me walking around my own condo like I was the one who'd done something wrong. That's how it starts. Not with violence, with emotional punishment, with the slow conditioning of your brain into thinking, if I bring up my needs, I'll lose peace. By the time month 3 arrived, I realized something terrifying. Ethan wasn't acting like a guest. He was acting like a person who believed my home was his. And the longer he stayed, the more he moved like that belief was a fact. So one night, after I found his mail on my kitchen counter, his name printed neatly above my address, I stood there holding the envelope with trembling fingers, and I finally admitted the truth out loud. "This isn't temporary anymore," I whispered, and I knew I had to end it, before he decided I couldn't. The envelope sat in my hands longer than it should have. White, official, innocent-looking. Ethan Caldwell. My address. I stood in the kitchen, staring at it like it might start speaking on its own. Mail isn't just mail. Mail is proof. Proof you exist somewhere. Proof you belong somewhere. Proof you can point and say, "See, this is my home." I placed the envelope on the counter and felt something settle in my chest. Not fear yet, but certainty. This had gone too far. That night I asked Ethan to sit down. He didn't look nervous when he joined me at the dining table. If anything, he looked curious, like he was waiting to see what version of me was about to show up. "I think we need to talk about next steps," I said. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed loosely. "Okay." I took a breath. This arrangement isn't working anymore. His eyebrows lifted slightly, but he didn't interrupt. "You were supposed to be here temporarily," I continued. "It's been 3 months. You're not looking for apartments. You're not working. And I need my home back." He studied me, eyes flat. "So, you're kicking me out." "I'm asking you to leave," I said carefully, "by the end of the month." There it was, the smallest flinch. Not shock, not hurt. Calculation. "I'm not trying to make this hard," I added quickly, because I still didn't want to be cruel. "I'll help you look for places. If money's tight, I can even help cover first month's rent. He raised his hand, stopping me. "No," he said. "Let's be clear." My stomach tightened. "You're not asking," he went on calmly. "You're threatening me." "I'm not threatening you," I said. "I'm setting a boundary." Ethan smiled. Not a warm smile, not the smile I'd fallen for. This one didn't reach his eyes. "You know," he said slowly, "people could see this very differently." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table like we were negotiating something simple. "I've been living here for 3 months, he said. "People could say you're controlling me, that you won't let me leave, that you financially pressured me." My heart stuttered. "What?" I laughed, because my brain refused to process it. "Ethan, that's insane." "Is it?" he asked calmly. "I quit my job after we started living together. You pay for everything. You decide when I can stay and when I can go." "That's not true," I said, my voice suddenly thin. "You chose to quit, and this is my home." "But who's going to believe that?" he asked softly. The room felt like it tilted. "I could say you isolated me," he continued, almost conversational, "that you made it hard for me to see my friends, that you used money to control me." My stomach dropped so fast I had to grip the edge of the table. "Are you serious right now?" I whispered. He watched me, unmoved. "Add me to the lease," he said. "Make this official." I stared at him. "There is no lease," I said. "I own this place." "Then add me to the title," he said, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. A cold wave rolled through me. "You want me to put your name on property my grandfather left me," I said slowly, "because you've been sleeping in my guest room." He shrugged. "We're together. That's how couples do things." "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not." The air shifted. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then I guess I have to protect myself." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. "Protect yourself from what?" I asked. "If you try to force me out," he said evenly, "I'll call the police. I'll tell them you're controlling me, that I'm scared of you." I pushed my chair back, standing abruptly. "You would lie like that?" "They take that stuff seriously," he said, "especially when a woman is accused." The words burned. "You're threatening to falsely accuse me of abuse," I said, my voice shaking now. He met my eyes. "I'm telling you what my options are." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Get out," I said quietly. "Pack your things and leave. Tonight." He leaned back again, crossing his arms. "No," he said. "You can't make me. I live here now. I have rights." My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. "I'm calling the police," I said. He smiled, small, smug. "Go ahead." I didn't call that night. I should have. I know that now. But in that moment, I was too angry, too shaken, too aware of how wrong this could go. Instead, I locked myself in my bedroom and started researching tenant laws until my eyes burned. And that's when I realized something terrifying. After 30 days, even without a lease, he might be right. In some cases, someone could claim tenancy just by living there. I barely slept. The next morning, I found Ethan in the kitchen like nothing had happened, pouring himself coffee from my machine. "I looked into the law," I said, my voice hoarse. "You need to leave by the end of the week, or I'll start formal eviction proceedings." He sipped his coffee, unfazed. "You really want to do this the hard way?" he asked. "You're the one making it hard," I said. He set the mug down slowly. "Fine," he said, pulling out his phone. "Let's see what the police think." My pulse spiked. "Ethan, don't." He dialed before I could say anything else. And as the phone rang, I watched his face change. His shoulders slumped, his voice rose, his breath quickened. It was like watching someone slip on a costume. "Hi," he said shakily. "I need help. My girlfriend is trying to force me out of our home, and I'm scared." My blood turned to ice. "He's been controlling my finances," Ethan continued. "I don't feel safe." He looked straight at me as he said it, that calm expression still there, beneath the performance. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might be sick. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But I also knew how this looked. 3 months of cohabitation. Mail with his name on it. Photos. Texts. A relationship. Without context, it could destroy me. So while he talked, I did the only thing I could think of. I reached into my pocket, and I started recording. The sound of sirens didn't come immediately. That was the first strange thing. After Ethan ended the call, the condo fell into an unnatural quiet, thick, pressurized, like the pause before a storm breaks. He stayed standing in the living room, phone still in his hand, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was fragile, like he was the one in danger. I stood near the kitchen counter, my phone recording silently in my pocket, my heart hammering so hard I was afraid the microphone would pick it up. "You didn't have to do that," I said. He didn't look at me. I did. "You're lying," I whispered. He finally turned, eyes flat. "I'm protecting myself." We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. Everything had already been said. 15 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Not loud, not aggressive, professional. When I opened it, 2 officers stood in the hallway. 1 man, 1 woman. Calm expressions. Neutral. The kind of faces that didn't assume anything yet. "Ma'am," the female officer said, "we received a call about a domestic situation." Ethan immediately stepped forward. His voice cracked perfectly. "I'm scared," he said. "She's trying to make me leave, and I don't have anywhere to go." I felt dizzy. They separated us right away, him into the living room, me into the kitchen. The male officer stood across from me, notebook in hand. "Can you tell me what's going on?" he asked. I took a breath. 1, 2. 3 months ago, I explained, I let my boyfriend stay in my guest room temporarily. This condo was mine. I owned it outright. He was never on any lease. There was never an agreement for him to move in permanently. He stopped looking for housing, I said. He quit his job. When I asked him to leave, he threatened to accuse me of controlling him if I didn't add him to the property. The officer nodded, writing steadily. "Do you have proof that you own the property?" he asked. "Yes," I said quickly. "I can pull up the deed, tax records, everything." "And do you have anything in writing about the temporary arrangement?" "Yes," I said again. "Text messages." I handed him my phone. He scrolled slowly, reading. There it was. Ethan. "My lease ends in 2 weeks and I'm panicking." Me. "You can stay in my guest room while you figure things out. Just temporary, though." Ethan. "Thank you. A month or 2 tops, I promise." The officer nodded once, then looked up. "Has there been any physical violence tonight?" he asked. "No," I said. "None. The only threat was him saying he'd lie to police." "Did anyone witness that conversation?" "No," I admitted, but I started recording after. His eyebrows lifted. "You recorded him?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady now. "This is a one-party consent state." He paused, then nodded. "Can I hear it?" I played the recording. The room filled with Ethan's voice, clear, unmistakable. Let's see what the police think. Then the shift, the fake fear, the performance on the call. The officer's jaw tightened. "Thank you," he said, handing my phone back. "Please stay here." He left the kitchen and joined his partner in the living room. I stood alone, staring at the wall, my hands shaking so badly I had to press them together. 10 minutes passed, then another 5. Finally, both officers returned. The female officer spoke first. "We've reviewed the situation," she said carefully. "Your ex-boyfriend has acknowledged that you own the property and that there was never a formal lease." My stomach still twisted. "However," the male officer continued, "making a false 911 call is a crime. Based on the recording and the messages, it's clear there was no immediate danger." I blinked. "So, what happens?" "We're issuing him a citation for misuse of emergency services," the officer said, "and we're giving him 72 hours to collect his belongings and vacate." My knees nearly gave out. Ethan exploded. "That's not fair," he shouted from the living room. "I live here." "You were a temporary guest," the female officer said firmly. "You need to leave tonight. You can return with an escort to collect your things." Ethan stormed into the kitchen, grabbing his jacket, his face twisted with rage. "This isn't over," he hissed at me. The male officer stepped between us. "Sir, you need to go." Ethan slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. When the condo finally went quiet again, I slid down against the counter and cried until my chest hurt. I thought it was done. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from a lawyer. He was suing me. Illegal eviction, emotional distress, financial damages. $15,000. I stared at the paper, numb. And that's when I realized calling the police hadn't ended the nightmare. It had only changed its shape. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Thicker, more official. The kind of mail that doesn't bring information. It brings consequences. I stood at my kitchen counter, the same counter Ethan had rearranged without asking, and read the letter 3 times before the words fully settled into my body. Illegal eviction, emotional distress, financial damages, $15,000. I laughed once. A short, disbelieving sound that cracked halfway through. Then my hands started shaking. According to the letter, I had forced Ethan to quit his job, isolated him from friends and family, and violently removed him from our shared home. Shared. That word again. My stomach turned. I called a lawyer that afternoon. He was calm, efficient, the kind of calm that only comes from having seen this before. When I finished explaining everything, texts, recording, police report, ownership documents, there was a pause on the line. Then he laughed. Not unkindly, not dismissively, just incredulous. "This is nonsense," he said. "You have overwhelming documentation. He doesn't have a case." Relief rushed through me so fast it made me dizzy. "So what do we do?" I asked. "We respond," he said, "and we counter." We sent back everything. The messages clearly stating the arrangement was temporary, the audio recording, the police citation for misuse of 911, my condo deed, even security footage from my building showing Ethan coming and going freely, no fear, no restriction, no control. We filed a counterclaim for harassment, abuse of process, and defamation. Within a week, Ethan's lawyer dropped him. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong again. Because when legal pressure failed, he changed tactics. One morning, I woke up to messages from friends I hadn't spoken to in months. "Hey, are you okay? I saw something online. Wanted to check in. Is everything all right with you and Ethan?" My chest tightened. I opened social media. Ethan hadn't used my name. He didn't have to. Instead, he posted vague, emotional stories about escaping a controlling relationship, about finally finding the courage to speak up, about being silenced by money and power. He talked about a girlfriend who used finances as leverage, who threatened him with police, who made him homeless. The comments were worse. "Proud of you for speaking your truth. Believe survivors. Men can be victims too." I sat on my bed, phone in my hands, heart pounding. People I knew, people who had sat in my living room, eaten my food, laughed with me, were liking his posts. Some reached out to me directly. A few asked gently what happened. Others didn't ask at all. One friend said something that still echoes in my head. "Even if he exaggerated, there's usually some truth in these things." That sentence hurt more than the lawsuit, more than the threats, because it meant the lie had already done its work. My lawyer sent a cease and desist. The post came down within 48 hours. But the damage didn't. Once doubt exists, it doesn't disappear just because the evidence says it should. I stopped sleeping well. Every notification made my chest tighten. Every knock at the door made my stomach drop. I kept thinking, what else can he do? And then a month later, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. When I answered, I heard a familiar voice. The mail officer. "Ms. Archer," he said. "I wanted to let you know, Ethan Caldwell has been arrested." The room tilted. "For what?" I asked. There was a pause. "After your incident," he said carefully, "he did the same thing to someone else." My breath caught. He moved in with another woman. Temporary hardship. Refused to leave. Called 911 when she asked him to go. I closed my eyes. "And this time," he continued, "we started digging." That's when I understood. This wasn't personal. This was a pattern. And I had just been one chapter in a much longer story. When the officer said pattern, something inside me finally clicked into place. All the moments I'd replayed in my head, the charm, the urgency, the way Ethan spoke in rehearsed phrases, suddenly lined up like a script I'd only seen my part of. "I wasn't the first," I said quietly. "No," the officer replied, "you weren't." He told me they'd uncovered 2 prior incidents in other cities. Same setup, same escalation, same threat when he was asked to leave. In one case, the woman had paid him just to make him go away. In another, she'd gone through months of eviction hearings because she was too afraid to challenge his accusations. They wanted my testimony. I didn't hesitate. A week later, I got a call from someone else, another victim, a woman in her late 30s, exhausted. Careful with her words, like she was afraid of triggering something in herself just by speaking. We met for coffee downtown. She looked at me like I was proof she wasn't crazy. "He did the same thing," she said. "Same phrases, same guilt trips, same threats." She showed me screenshots, messages that could have been copied from my own phone. That's when we realized the truth was bigger than any one of us. More victims came forward, quietly at first, then with growing confidence. 7 of us in total. Different cities, different ages, same story. We compiled timelines, evidence, recordings, police reports, financial records. When we presented everything to the prosecutor, even she looked stunned. "This is systematic," she said. "This isn't a bad breakup. This is fraud." The charges expanded. Fraud. extortion, false reporting, harassment. The trial happened 4 months later. Sitting in that courtroom was surreal. Ethan wore an orange jumpsuit. No charm, no confidence, just a tight jaw and eyes that avoided ours. His defense painted him as misunderstood, a man down on his luck, a victim of cruel partners. But lies don't survive patterns. Text messages contradicted his claims. Recordings exposed his tactics. Police reports documented the false calls. Financial records showed who was paying and who wasn't. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. 3 years in prison, 5 years probation, restitution to all victims, mandatory counseling, and a restriction prohibiting him from entering informal housing arrangements during probation. The judge's words still echo in my head. "You weaponized compassion," he said, "and you damaged systems meant to protect real victims." When it was over, I walked out of the courthouse and breathed like I hadn't in a year. Freedom doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels quiet. I still live in the same condo. The guest room is gone now. Not physically, but symbolically. It's my office, my space. Desk by the window, bookshelves, no trace of him left. I changed the locks again. Not because I needed to, but because I could. I am dating someone new. He has his own place, his own life, his own plans. When he talks about moving, he talks about his lease, his timeline. He asks, never assumes. That's how I know. The other victims and I still check in. A group chat that started as evidence became something else. Support, reminders, proof that survival doesn't have to be solitary. Looking back, the scariest part wasn't the lawsuit or the threats. It was how close he came to succeeding. If I hadn't documented, if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if the officers hadn't listened, I still believe in helping people. I just believe now in helping myself first. Because kindness without boundaries isn't generosity. It's access. And no one gets access to my life or my home without earning it. He's locked up. We're free. And this time, the door is closed for good.